The last two huge comic book movies to come out were Civil War and Batman v Superman. And going into this review for this movie, I tried my best to say, I really don't want to compare X-Men Apocalypse to those two films. But it's really hard not to. I wanted to compare them to previous movies in the X-Men franchise, but I find it kind of weird that this is the third major comic book movie to come out in a row. I mean, Deadpool was kind of its own thing, but I was pretty stunned at seeing the reviews this movie's been getting. Extremely polarizing movie, and I find it funny that in many ways it really is the best of Civil War and in some ways the worst of Batman v Superman. So, X-Men Apocalypse takes place in the 80s after Days of Futures Past and before X-Men 1. Now, without going into spoilers until later on in the video, I'm a little confused about this timeline because the movie's supposed to explain to us how certain X-Men became part of the team, how Professor Xavier became bald, and things of that nature. But the end of the movie was kind of strange because either there's going to be another film to follow up this one, which I had heard there wasn't going to be except for like the X-Force movies or some of the spin-off titles. I heard this is going to be it for these Singer X-Men movies, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they will make more. It just, the ending, which I'll get into in the spoiler section, leaves a lot of questions unanswered and honestly left me scratching my head. The continuity of the film is weird. Now, if you have an answer to this, I'd definitely like to hear a comment down below from one of you guys who has seen the movie to kind of try to somewhat explain what is going on. And please make sure you put spoiler warning for those who haven't, because I want to know, because some things tie into X-Men 1, but other things are just plot holes or just not explained, and that really did bug me about the film. Now, before I go any further with the actual story and what I liked and what I didn't like, non-spoiler, of course, at first, and I'll get into spoilers later, I just want to say that, yes, Apocalypse, I was not a fan of the costume. It really was like Ivan Ooze. That's not a lie. It was better in the movie, but still a little too cartoony. And that's the thing about this movie, is that one of the issues this movie had is that it had trouble finding an identity. I couldn't tell if it wanted to be cartoony, kind of, lighthearted Marvel style, or if it was trying to be like a dark DC, Batman v Superman, Man of Steel, uber realistic style. And that was kind of the one thing about the movie where I felt really stood out, is that, and I'm telling you, part of the movie feels like Civil War, especially near the end with the big action sequences, and other parts feel like Batman v Superman, where the movie's very, very dark. In fact, the entire Magneto subplot is ridiculously dark. This is not an X-Men movie for kids. I'm telling you right now. It just really, really screams adult. But then later on in the film, when we get to the big rumble with Apocalypse and whatnot, and the Horsemen, it's very cartoony and kind of wacky, and that's a problem that I had. Also, one issue I had with the film was that there were far too many subplots, and none of them really had a great conclusion, so to speak. The last film was all about, Wolverine, Mystique, and Magneto. This movie keeps the Mystique and Magneto storyline going, but also throws in a Quicksilver subplot and a subplot with the school and with Cyclops, which the Cyclops subplot, I felt came off very, very unnecessary. It's almost as if they had trouble introducing Cyclops, Jean, and some other characters back into X-Men, so it kind of felt a little strange there. Oscar Isaac hams it up as Apocalypse. I mean, he was definitely playing a different Apocalypse than the one we've seen from the X-Men animated series or from the video games. He was playing I would say he is a much more religious Apocalypse. There was lots of religious iconography in this film, a lot more than, of course, the video games and TV shows were willing to capture, and they did capture a nice side of Apocalypse that we rarely saw. But one thing I will tell you is this: if you are looking for a movie that's so much like the comics, and that's, essentially a comic brought to life, you're going to get the action, but you're not going to get the characters, because Apocalypse in this movie is very different than the comics, especially with his powers. And the other big difference was Mystique. Now, if you saw the promotionals going into this movie, you know that this is the Jennifer Lawrence show. And it really wasn't as much the Jennifer Lawrence show as we thought it was. I expected it to be a lot more about her, and it really wasn't. But she does have a considerable amount of screen time, and the character of Mystique in this movie is not anywhere close to the Mystique from the comics at all. I understand in Days of Futures Past how she was conflicted, didn't really know what to do. That makes sense. This Mystique was essentially this superhero X-Men de facto leader, which she never was in the comics. She never was. So if you don't like movies deviating characters from the source material, you're not going to like this. I mean, I'm telling you that right now. You will not like what they did with Mystique here. I feel that there could have been better ways to transition Cyclops and Storm in than what they did in the movie. Another problem with the movie is that it was very disjointed. There's, again, many plots going on at once. I'm not going to spoil it, but you have a plot with Nightcrawler going on. You have Apocalypse doing his thing. You have Magneto doing his thing. You have stuff at the school. You have Cyclops. There's several different, 6, 7, 8 different things going on. And then they converge into one. And I've always felt that that's very tricky to do with a movie. With films, you can have like 2 or 3 or 4 different things. When you get to like 5 and 6, the audience tends to lose track. Also, if you did not see First Class, Days of Futures Past, and other X-Men movies, you're going to be confused. I mean, you are going to be confused going into it because there's almost no explanation. At least Batman v Superman gave us that intro where you saw Batman in Metropolis seeing the destruction and whatnot. We didn't see that here. But honestly, the movie's not that bad. I don't think it's anywhere close to being as bad as Rotten Tomatoes says it is. I think it's a good movie, not a great movie, okay? It's nowhere close to the level of Days of Futures Past or X-Men 2 at all. I would even say it's a little bit below X-Men 1. I would put it above First Class and above X-Men 3, but there were a lot of things in this movie that screamed X-Men 3, which is not good because that movie's despised by a lot of people. But overall, I say don't listen to the critics as far as this movie being horrible. It really wasn't. It just wasn't very good. It was just a good movie, not a great movie. Too much going on. The action sequences were good, but I felt with what we got in Civil War, I mean, it was just one great moment after another. This one didn't really have those great moments. It did have a few, but I actually felt that what was lacking in this movie really was Hugh Jackman. I mean, Hugh Jackman was in the film for a little while, which I'll get to in the spoiler part, but I felt that his charisma carried the previous X-Men movie, especially Days, and I thought that he was really missing here. I really thought he should have been a bigger part of this movie, but I understand why they didn't do it. They wanted to tell a different story, but you need to have a charismatic actor, and the problem is that some of these young, newer actors don't really have it. James McAvoy and Fassbender are great, but I mean the new Cyclops, the new Jean Grey, just can't compare. It didn't fit right for me. Just my opinion, of course. Overall, I say if you're an X-Men fan, check out the movie, but do not expect it to be anywhere close to as good as X2 or Days of Futures Past. I thought it was good, not great, and I'm kind of confused about where the timeline goes because it doesn't make much sense. All right, spoiler alert. Here we go, spoilers. The stuff I liked and didn't like from the spoilers we can talk about here. Okay, the timeline. So they explain Professor X being bald. They explain Storm and Cyclops and Jean joining the team. We even see the Phoenix Force, which contradicts the entire purpose of Days because if I remember correctly, Wolverine tells, Professor not to lose her and take care of her, but yet the Professor knows that she has the Phoenix Force inside of her. And actually, at the end of the movie, she uses the Phoenix Force to kill Apocalypse. And it was interesting because I kind of thought that made sense. Because what could destroy Apocalypse but the Phoenix Force? I mean, it probably could. I would say it can destroy Apocalypse. So that made sense. But again, it kind of contradicts the previous movies. It's like, what did you learn from it? Also, the movie ends with Mystique being the battle leader of the X-Men, and Quicksilver's there. Jubilee's in the movie too, but she doesn't really do anything. And they're all training against these Sentinels. Now, I actually loved the fact that they're in the Danger Room training against the Sentinels from Days of Futures Past. I thought that was awesome. I really thought that was fantastic. Great throwback. and we see Professor X bald, and so everything's tying together. But again, it was very weird. Also, the end of Days of Futures Past had Mystique dig up Logan in the past, the past version of Logan, of Wolverine, and they hinted that it wasn't Curtis Stryker who actually found him, but in this movie, Wolverine's being held captive in Stryker's Weapon X program, which, by the way, was a great scene when you saw Wolverine, Hugh Jackman's cameo in the movie. It's only a cameo, but he does a great job. No words. He just goes around slicing dudes up, which I thought was pretty awesome. Very gory. Very, very gory. I've been waiting to see Wolverine kick that kind of ass for a long time, and I loved it. I thought it was good. But yeah, Jennifer Lawrence's character of Mystique in this movie was very uncharacteristic. Also, more timeline issues. So, Nightcrawler's an X-Man now, but I remember it being pretty heavily implied in X2 that he first met them. So, okay, so what's really the story here? Is this a new timeline, or is the timeline modified? I was under the impression that Days of Futures Past erased X-Men 3, right? We can all agree to that one. But I didn't know it actually modified X1 and 2. I mean, I guess it makes sense because it's time travel and there's always a butterfly effect. But I was a bit taken aback by the fact that, you know, Nightcrawler's here, Quicksilver's here. I mean, I can understand them something happening in the future about why they wouldn't be on the team or whatever, but I'm pretty sure that Nightcrawler first met them at that point. But then again, these movies have not made that much sense to begin with anyways. I mean, remember, the first Wolverine movie, the Origins one, that one isn't even part of canon anymore, I don't think, the way it's been written off with Deadpool and this movie. This movie definitely writes that one off, so let's just erase that one. But they got to come out and actually explain this. You know, I mean, Fox has to, or Singer, or somebody. Also, this was the on-screen debut of Psylocke. Olivia Munn played the part. I thought she was fucking awesome, but I do wish we had more Psylocke. I really do wish we had more of her. I don't think there was enough of her in this movie. Also, I thought that the Quicksilver subplot was kind of lacking again. It teased you that it was going to go somewhere and never really went somewhere, and it kind of bugged me. And then also what happened to Havoc I thought was kind of, you know, I'm still kind of thinking that that's going to get fixed in the future. Havoc, of course, gets killed in the movie. But again, that remains to be seen. Also, another time issue, Angel becoming Archangel, all right? Now, I like the fact that he became Archangel because I always thought Archangel was badass, you know, wings with knives. But, man, it was weird because in X3, we see him, you know, Warren Worthington III still being, you know, Angel. And again, I know that X3 has been erased, but wouldn't he have started that movie with the Archangel wings? Again, it's very weird. I'm just wondering legit how they're going to, or what they're going to do about this time issue. I mean, it really did bug me, and it took me a couple of viewings of watching Terminator Genesis to really realize how fucked up that timeline is, and this one, from the first viewing, I'm already confused. So again, if you have any light on it, let me know down below, because it's not making sense to me. Also, there were some badass cameos here. Caliban, Banshee, Dazzler, the Blob. Of course, Stan Lee makes his cameo because it's kind of interesting. But this time it was pretty cool because his wife was there. Stan Lee and his wife were in this movie, yo. I thought that was pretty awesome. And let's talk about the post-credit scene. I might do a separate video about it. Essex Corporation. Who is Essex? Nathaniel Essex, also known as Mr. Sinister. Will that be the villain of the upcoming Gambit movie or the Wolverine sequel? We heard that the Reavers are going to be the enemies or the villains in the Wolverine movie, but Essex Corporation ties in with Nathaniel Essex. So I had talked about this with Uncanny Megan on a video I did about the possibility of Mr. Sinister being the next villain, and it looks like that might actually be the case. Anyways, that's it for my review of X-Men Apocalypse. Again, right in the middle of Civil War and BVS. I liked it more than BVS, and I didn't like it as much as Civil War, so it's right in the middle. It tried to be too many things, I thought. Nowhere close to Days or to X-Men 2 at all. I think it's not even as good as X-Men 1, actually. I think it's right below X-Men 1. But I did not feel like I wasted my time. I had a good time at the movies, but I have a feeling this movie's not going to age well. I don't know if there was enough fiber in the movie to keep you coming back. It was kind of a basic story. Didn't have the emotion that the previous films had. It was lacking that real emotion. They hit you with it early with Magneto's story, but I think they took it away a little bit too fast. And it was, you know, It made sense, though. Magneto was a very sympathetic character, but I'm kind of sick of Magneto going back and forth here. And then also the end of the movie where you see him, like, wishing Professor good luck. Like, I get all that. Like, they're rivals. Like, I get all that, but I thought he left on too good of terms. I mean, what about the Brotherhood in X-Men 1? Is there going to be another X-Men movie to explain the split? Who knows? Who knows at this point? Anyways, thanks to y'all for checking out the review of X-Men Apocalypse, and let me know your thoughts down below. And if you're going to spoil the movie in the comments, please type in big capital letters, spoilers, so that anybody who has not seen the film can know ahead of time, to avoid your comment. And of course, if you have seen the film, like I said, put spoiler. If you have not, then, well, I don't know why you're still listening to this. Maybe you don't care about spoilers. But hey, thanks a lot for checking out the review. Have a great day.